Hey everyone, it's Nerd again with the second part of the three-part guide series I've been making to help people get acquainted with Destiny 2. This section of the guide is devoted to gear, which encompasses weapons and armor. These guides are very general and act as intro guides for people who haven't spent a lot of time with the series or are new to it as a whole. So the first portion of this guide involves some general concepts. These concepts are Masterworks, level, and rarity. Firstly, the big number posted on a piece of gear's info card is its level. The blue number next to your character's helmet slot is an average of all the levels of your equipped gear. This average is referred to as power level or light level depending on who you talk to, and dictates the activities you have access to and the damage you deal to enemies in those activities. This level has no effect on any basic PvP modes, and being overleveled helps you to a point, but doesn't necessarily break early game content. Secondly comes rarity. Rarity is a concept that is universal across looter shooters, and although some games use a different naming scheme or color set, the overall concept remains the same. Destiny's rarity tiers are common, which is white gear, uncommon, which is green, rare, which is blue, legendary, which is purple, and exotic, which is gold. Common gear will stop showing up for you early on in the gearing process, and you'll likely never see it used past this point as it is the most baseline of gear pieces. Uncommon gear is general items you'll receive until about midway through the story. Rare gear is a lot of what you will see during the endgame leveling process, and will be a part of your loadout during some endgame gearing. Blue gear is also the first gear you start to see perks on, but I'll explain that later. Legendary gear is the main component of endgame builds, and where you start to fashion out your character. Legendary gear comprises a lot of what you'll be hunting after in the endgame, and is a tier of gear that you will become very accustomed to seeing as you play through the game from level 20-ish onward to 50. Exotic is the final tier of weapon, and they are the highest tier of gear. Exotics drop incredibly infrequently and are occasionally blocked behind specific quests or activities. Exotic armor pieces and weapons give supplemental perks that contribute very well to specific playstyles, with weapons having perks or traits that make them stand out from the rest of the weapons in their class, and armor giving you perks that very heavily benefit a specific playstyle. A key point on exotic rarity items is that you can only have one weapon and armor piece equipped of this rarity at a given time, so pay attention to that. Lastly comes the point of Masterworks, a system in Destiny 2 that has some unique extra effects that come with it. Masterworks are a random component of every weapon and armor drop you get, and improve the gear in some minor way. Weapons will get Masterworks that add 10 points to a random stat on the weapon, which can be range, stability, reload speed, or handling, and then a few extras that affect specific weapon classes. And armor will get arc, solar, or void armor, which increases your resistance to that specific damage slightly. Armor Masterworks come Shadowkeep will also affect the mods you can apply to said armor piece, with each Masterwork type giving you a different range of mods, and the Masterwork level affecting what mods can be applied. Both Masterwork types can be leveled up to 10 at max, and get a gold border when they're maxed out. Masterwork weapons will get a kill tracker at level 6, and create orbs of light on multi-kills when maxed out at 10. Now that the universal systems are out of the way, let's get specific. First up with armor, the perks available on armor are supplemental to however you play the game. Perks on armor are available through mods, which, as explained before, operate on a point budget system given to you by your armor's Masterwork level. More powerful perks are given more of a cost, and less powerful cost less, pretty standard. These perks can be anything from reloaders to reduce reload time, unflinching perks to affect your weapons when taking gunfire, and dexterity perks to increase the handling of an item. Armor pieces also come with 6 stats tied to them. Character stats, which include mobility, resilience, and recovery, and ability stats, which are intellect, strength, and discipline. Character stats affect how your character operates, while ability stats affect your cooldowns at various tiers. Mobility affects your character's move speed and jump height, resilience affects your character's overall health, and recovery affects your health regen speed. With the other set, intellect affects your super cooldown, discipline affects your grenades, and strength affects your melee. There are armor mods that add a flat bonus to any of these 6 stats as well if you decide you want those, and your armor comes with 2 mod slots for you to play with for options. Weapons are much more complex than armor. Where armor is class-specific and much more of a singular concept, weapons function differently on a multitude of levels. First comes your weapon slots: kinetic, energy, and power. Kinetic weapons have no elemental damage and are the weapons you spawn holding out. Energy weapons are your second slot and have elemental damage types. And power weapons are restrained to the third slot and are meant to be your high damage weapons. Hand cannons, auto rifles, scout rifles, pulse rifles, SMGs, sidearms, bows, sniper rifles, shotguns, fusion rifles, and single-shot grenade launchers can all occupy your kinetic and energy weapon slots, while rocket launchers, linear fusion rifles, drum grenade launchers, light machine guns, and swords all occupy your power weapon slot. Every weapon type also gets categorized into ammo types, with primary weapons having white ammo that comes in abundance, special weapons like snipers or shotguns that take green ammo, which comes less frequently, and power weapons having rare purple ammo. Weapons also have subcategories that make them operate differently within themselves, which I'll explain briefly. Every weapon class has multiple archetypes that make up the different weapons within that class. A weapon's archetype is defined by its frame, which comes in aggressive, high impact, adaptive, precision, lightweight, rapid fire. Every frame has something that comes inherently with it, such as high recoil and high damage for aggressive frames, or inherently better handling and faster move speed while equipped for lightweight frames. I'll explain each briefly, but first I want to mention perks. Perks on legendary weapons come randomly and are what is referred to as a weapon's roll. Every legendary weapon rolls with two main perks, barrels or sights, and magazine perks. The sights or barrels affect the weapon at a base level, giving raw stat changes and smaller values. The magazine perks offer much larger and much more specific stat changes to those same stats, and the two main perks alter how the weapon plays, such as more damage after a kill, or more range while aiming down sights. These perks can make or break specific weapons, and often a good weapon roll can really change your mind about a certain weapon. A weapon's best roll is termed by the community as a god roll, and weapons that come from certain activities have special rolls that draw fully masterwork called curated rolls, which are rolls chosen by Bungie as either a unique or good roll on a chosen weapon. Talking about primary weapons first comes scout rifles. If you've ever played Halo, these function a lot like the DMR. Scout rifles are semi-auto by nature and have the highest range of all primary ammo weapons. Scouts are very basic, beginner-friendly weapons, and most have very minimal recoil to boot. There's nothing really to note here in terms of frames, as none of the scout rifle frames have really special functions unique from other weapons with the same frames, so I'll move on. Auto rifles are next, and are the middle-of-the-road weapon type. Auto rifles by namesake are automatic weapons and occupy a mid-range role. Auto rifles are incredibly basic and have a decent variety to them with good variance in different frames. Auto rifles are a fairly common weapon type and work fairly well in most aspects of the game, so don't be afraid to pick one up every now and again. SMGs fill a similar role to auto rifles but play more at close range. The average rate of fire for SMGs is higher than that of auto rifles, but they play more or less the same. They're not super amazing or unique weapons, but like auto rifles, definitely get the job done. Sidearms also occupy the same space as SMGs, but as single-shot weapons. Sidearms are among the least used weapons in the game, and not many are considered good, but I'd still recommend trying them at least once before discarding them altogether, as they can have their uses. Pulse rifles are the next set, and these are the first weapons with real variance in the frames. Pulse rifles are burst-fire weapons, usually firing 3 rounds in every burst. However, aggressive frames break this mold, firing 4 per burst. Pulse rifles occupy the range set just under scouts, but still work fine for most ranges. Hand cannons also have some variance to them, but more so just within themselves. Precision frame hand cannons are the fastest firing archetype and have a unique recoil pattern that sets them apart from other hand cannons. The recoil pattern they have is completely vertical with very little kick, and have marginally reduced damage to go with this very minimal recoil. Lightweight and adaptive hand cannons are also a little bizarre in that they occupy the same role, but lightweight hand cannons do everything adaptive frames do, just a little faster. Hand cannons are among some of the most popular weapons in the game as well, and if you go into PvP at all, it's not unlikely that you'll see some hand cannon use. Most often you'll see a hand cannon paired with a sniper rifle, as the sniper rifle takes mid-long ranges. and hand cannons take the close to mid ranges. Hand cannons are probably the most versatile weapon type in the game, so be prepared to see a lot of them. Bows are the last to mention of the primary weapons and have a very niche place in the game. They have range comparable to scout rifles, but have the drawback of having to draw the bow back every time you want to fire. Alongside that, at base you can't hold the draw indefinitely, so you have to play this very rhythmic game of drawing the arrow behind cover and popping out to fire within a few seconds of making the draw. They definitely have their uses and can be effective, but the strange place they sit in terms of weapon loadouts definitely makes them a bit more niche than other weapons. Next up are the special weapons, which are the harder hitting weapons in the game. Starting off are sniper rifles, which are very self-explanatory. Sniper rifles have long-range scopes and deal large damage to enemy weak points just as they do in any other game. Some snipers have interchangeable scopes, but most have static scope and zoom values. Handling is a big stat on sniper rifles, as handling affects swap speed and ADS time, which are very important when it comes to snipers. Destiny is known for having some pretty severe sniper flinch, so handling speed is considered fairly important when it comes to sniping. Shotguns are next and have one major distinction between them. Most frames are pellet shotguns that fire a spread and have very short one-hit kill distances, but the precision frame operates differently. Precision frame shotguns are slug shotguns, which only one-hit kill in PvP by hitting a headshot, and can be marginally more effective than regular shotguns in some environments. Slug shotguns also have slightly more extended ranges than regular shotguns as well, which gives them a slight edge in some engagements. Special grenade launchers are up next and function very similar to the Halo Reach grenade launcher. If you just fire the weapon without holding your fire button, the grenade will travel a set distance and then explode. If you hold the fire button, however, the grenade will travel until either you let go of fire or it stops bouncing. These launchers can also have additional effects on them, such as blinding grenades, which are basically fireable flashbangs, or concussion grenades, which stun and disorient enemies. Lastly are fusion rifles, which is a unique weapon class in Destiny. Fusion rifles have a charge time, which is dependent on what frame of fusion you use, with high impact being the slowest charging frames, while rapid fire the fastest. Fusion rifles charge for a short period while holding fire, and then fire 7 bolts once they've fully charged. Each impact class takes a different number of bolts to kill in all aspects of the game, but each archetype offers a playstyle to it that sets it apart from other special weapons. Power weapons are the last class of weapon and are fairly straightforward. Rocket launchers and swords are self-explanatory, with swords having small lunge distances and have heavy and light attacks, and are the only weapon that sticks you in third person while using them. Rockets are hard-hitting explosives that can have tracking modules to make for easier target acquisition. Heavy grenade launchers are drum magazine grenade launchers that can be fired in quick succession, but still mostly function like the special grenade launchers. And light machine guns are also fairly straightforward with little need for explanation. Linear fusion rifles are like the slug shotguns of fusion rifles, where linear fusion rifles fire a single bolt instead of multiple and deal massively increased damage to the head. That generally covers Destiny's gear system, and should at least get you started in kitting yourself out. There are a couple things I didn't cover, which are mostly cosmetic things, like how shaders and ornaments work, but cosmetics are taught to you in-game. I hope this general guide was helpful to you, and if it wasn't, feel free to tell me what wasn't helpful in the comments. See you guys next time when I round out the series to talk about the in-game activities.